struck me like a thunderclap. Dear God, I have 296 lives literally in my two hands. As I walked into cockpit and I took in the pilot's behavior, the aircraft's behavior, the status of the engineer's panel, the first thing that strikes your mind is, dear God, I'm going to die this afternoon. The only question that remains is how long is it going to take Iowa to hit me? That's a very compelling moment in your life. Life was good, and here I am 46 years old and I'm going to die. My wife was my high school sweetheart. Loved her dearly, and I had 3 beautiful children. Where are we right now? Are we in love or are we at war? I talked to her the night before, and the last thing she said to me was, I love you, hurry home, I love you. And with that knowledge and that peace, I was ready to die that day if I had to. I knew I loved them to death. Eliminate the pitch phugoid. Keep the altitude, keep that right wing up. Guts, intuition, whatever you want to call it. I'm just trying to find the right magic and trying to make these variations smaller and smaller and smaller to where they're manageable for an approach and landing. The problem was there was no constant. When you think you had one solved, the other issue would kick in, the wing would drop. One would not suffice for both. It was an intuitive response after a period of time. I had a sense that the airplane was going to do something. I had a sense that it was going to go in another direction. And knowing that it was reaching that point again, I would be proactive in my throttle control, getting in tune with the airplane, to read the instrumentation and benchmarking things that happen at these certain points and try to lead it. Before the airspeed got to where it wanted to be and the airplane on its own would start up, I'd see it getting close, and I'd put the power in maximum power, get the nose back up sooner and begin to climb. And then the speed started to decay backwards. That's it, power's off. Intervening before the natural process took place in a phugoid, we stayed a little higher than we normally would have. Buying time, buying time, buying time. As long as we could, we kept the airplane up. The right engine, the direction of the turn, I put more power on than I would the left engine. That would keep the wing up, and if you keep a wing fairly level, the airplane will not turn. If I allowed the wing to drop, then I could let it turn right. The phugoid caused me to take power all the way off and all the way on, and that complicated it immensely. It just became like the airplane was an extension of me, and I could feel these stimuli coming at me before I actually felt them were solid. It was work in progress all the way to the ground. I don't think I ever perfected it. It just got better little bit by little bit. There is a possibility that we can make this survivable.
You were entertaining all kinds of places to land, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the captain was given choices by air traffic control. Des Moines is a possibility. Lincoln, Nebraska is a possibility. Omaha is a possibility. But in Captain Haynes' judgments, the behaviors he was seeing of the aircraft, the math just didn't add up at the rate it was losing altitude. We would hit the ground prior to reaching any of those places. The decision was made to try to make it to Sioux City. That radar controller locally took over, and they were pointing out interstate highways. If you guys can't make the airport, here's some options for you. There's an interstate highway that runs north-south. There's one that runs east-west in case an airport no longer was viable. If you were to look at the track that we flew, we did 4 complete right 360 turns, and we did 1 left 180-degree turn. It was really questionable whether we were going to be able to keep it flying straight at Sioux City or not. One of the things that we wanted to know was where were we? The navigation station at the Sioux City airport that tells us how far we are and what direction the airport is from the aircraft. Unfortunately, it was out of service that day, so we didn't have any onboard navigation capability to the airport. We were talking to the approach controller, and that gave us some positioning. As we got closer to the airport, one of the things that I realized by all this experimentation was that there were certain speeds that if I got near these speeds, I had the maximum capability of controlling the airplane. A normal DC-10 would approach the airport at about 150 miles per hour. I could not slow this airplane safely below 250 miles an hour. We were 100 miles an hour faster than normal.
And United 232 Heavy, if you can't make the airport, sir, there is an interstate that runs north to south to the east side of the airport. It's a 4-lane interstate. We're just passing it right now. We're going to cry for the airport. United 232 Heavy, roger. And advise when you get the airport in sight. Got the runway in sight. We'll be with you very shortly. Thanks a lot for your help.
We were perhaps about 6 minutes out. We saw the runway by then. We were making the descent into the airport, and because of the high speed we were going over the ground, we had to make a steep descent. They said you can land on runway 31. We didn't have the altitude or the maneuverability to maneuver to that runway. As a matter of fact, the controller said, "You're clear to land on any runway," to Captain Haynes, and Al's retort was basically a laugh. He said, "Ha, you want to make it a runway, huh?" When we finally saw the airport, we were almost directly lined up with 2-2, and that was a godsend. We didn't have to maneuver the aircraft. We were already lined up for a straight-in approach into that runway. They put a big yellow X on it so pilots know that that's a closed runway. You don't land on this. But that runway was 6,600 feet long. It was a World War II runway. It's been closed for years. Cracked, crumbling, but boy, it was in the right direction, and that's what we needed. At 330,000 pounds going over 250 miles an hour with no way to stop it, we don't have any brakes. We had to touch down as close to the end of the runway as possible so that we could use all the runway ahead of us to slow down. But the beautiful thing was at the end of the runway was a wide open field that was laced in corn, and I thought, perfect. We may leave the runway, but if we can go into that cornfield and use all that plant matter to slow us down and stop the airplane, we're going to open 8 doors. Slides are going to inflate. 296 souls are going to slide down, and we're going to the nearest saloon and I'm buying. 400 feet above the ground or so, Captain Haynes looked at the airspeed indicator, realized we were doing about 220 knots. How fast we could be going when we touched the wheels on the runway was about 195 knots. The tires were going to explode or the casings were going to come off them or something. He simply said to me, "Pull the power off, slow us down." I knew the nose would pitch down. I knew the right wing would fall severely. All I had time to say to him was, "I can't, that's what's holding your wing up." When I thought we were right there, that we were right above the runway, that we were just about to touch down, I was going to chop both the throttles all the way back to idle to start to slow down. But then I looked over to see incredibly high sink rate, 1,800 feet per minute toward the ground, 3 times in excess of the structural capability of the landing gear. So I firewalled both the engine, took both the throttles, and I just pushed them to the full extent my arms would allow, trying to get maximum power out of both of them, hoping to pull the nose up and at the very last minute to arrest that sink rate so we didn't hit the runway that hard. But there just wasn't time. We hit so hard that my hands flew off the throttles.